Welcome back to another week of 9 is 10. If you've stuck with us this long, by jing, you really like watching the same programme for 10 years in a row over and over again. But the freshness, of course, of this is that you're going to hear voices talking over it. Voices who know Doctor Who and love it. Voices that sound northern and comforting. And this week, you're getting a sandwich of that. You're sandwiched betwixt us. For I am joined by the man behind the Velvet Onion itself, which is not a felt... a vegetable. It is the website, of course, is what I'm talking about. It's Mr. Paul Holmes. Hello, Paul Holmes.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, darling. Welcome
Hello.
to 9 is 10. Please take a seat.
I thought I'd ease them in with a nice, gentle voice before I become my normal self.
There you go. Just sort of like, let it all out. Let it out, son.
Let's get that northern going, eh?
Let's spread it around. Now,
Like northern butter.
like northern butter. In the sandwich, you know?
Yeah!
And then we'll envelop everyone. So, now that we sound like something out of Terror of the Vervoids, Paul, let everybody know a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about your love of Doctor Who. Spill said beans, sir.
Okay, well, I'm a journalist / marketer of arts, comedy, entertainment, whatever I like, basically. And one of those things that I like is Doctor Who, which... I got into when I was about 4, just before my 4th birthday, with Sylvester McCoy. And Remembrance of the Daleks was my first story. And then,
Good place to start.
I know, isn't it? And then the BBC, when they were being rotters, took it away from me. And I survived on a handful of videos and the odd repeat for many, many years. And then the DVDs started coming out. And so then I became more and more obsessed. And by the time the show came back... I was completely just infused with Doctor Who in my very veins.
Not physically. I mean, that's unless you left if you left the VHS on the radiator and then sort of fell asleep onto it. I imagine it'd have a similar effect. But
do you know, it's weird. I can't actually. I've still got the VHS that we recorded. Remembrance of the Daleks, and I think it was the Happiness Patrol next. And I've still got the VHS from 1988, and I cannot throw that away because that's the starting point for me.
Never do, because you get the ultimate sort of flashback gloat item there when people go, but as we said last week, the Daleks, this is the first time they floated, isn't it? That's where you can go, sit down, pull out a VHS player from the bottom of a cupboard, get the tape out, and be like. Get ready to blow your tiny minds clean off. Sylve got there first.
Well, Colin got there first, sort of, didn't he?
It's
briefly. It's not a great float, but it's a bit of a float.
It's a bit of it. It's more of a gentle push, a glide. So, is Sylvester your Doctor then? Yeah,
I mean, I was born in 84, and I must have seen a bit of Colin as a toddler, but I don't remember it. So Sylve mine.
It was all just a haze of colours and shapes.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe that era in a nutshell, isn't it? I mean, I love Colin now, and looking back, he's fantastic. And they all
I adore him, yeah.
Yeah, but and he's from just around the corner from me as well, so he should be my Doctor. But no, I'm afraid not.
Oh, see, now he'll hear that and he'll be sad.
I know, yeah. I spoke to him once on Twitter about it, and I know he grew up like about 5 minutes from my house, which is really weird.
See, wibbly wobbly, connected wecty. That doesn't work.
Connected wecty could work.
Connected wecty. They'll find a way to get that in the series somewhere. I guarantee
we'll make it work.
Moffat is mining this podcast for details. That's not true. Or is it? It's not. A big bonus of doing what you do and getting to meet the people you do, because you've got to work with some incredible like comedy groups and stand-ups and actors. Yeah. I mean, just to name but a few, like people like Tony Wayne and Alice Lowe and the Mighty Boosh, and there's like tons of incredibly talented people. Is it a spoiler to say Paul Kay is upcoming? Something with Paul Kay?
No, that's all fine. He's I got to know him a bit because he was in Mongrels, which I was helping plug. And then, he just kind of randomly tells me stuff every now and then that he's up to, and he's always jetting off to some amazing location. I went to his art show once, and it was amazing. Funnily enough, Sean Pertwee was there, and I turned round, and Sean Pertwee was in my face, and I kind of had to just kind of nod and say, "You all right?" Because in my head I was thinking A, sausages, and B, Doctor. Because he's slowly morphing into his father.
He really is. Have you seen any of Gotham? I'm not a big fan, but a 5-minute glimpse of Alfred, and I was like, the Pertwee gene is a strong one.
Yes. Well, he dressed up as him, didn't he, for some sort of Halloween or something recently?
Yeah, the photo sort of leaked as though they weren't meant to let everyone know. Because they knew full well we'd all be going, "Go on, appear as him, do it, do it." Oh dear. But speaking of like Tony and Paul, and there is a huge multitude now, 8 years on, well 8 series on, 10 years on, obviously 9 is 10, not 9 is 8, of comedy actors who have now appeared within Doctor Who, and that is what brings us together. By Jove, dear listener, this fine eve, or whatever time you're all listening to this, to talk about Series 1, Episode 7, The Long Game. Now, this is unique in 2 respects. One, it is, as I say, the first one to feature more not cameos, guest roles. One's definitely a guest role, one's a cameo, really. Tamsin Greig appears in a bit of a cameo, kind of. And Simon Pegg gets to play full-on villain duties. So, while we're going through this, let's have a natter about the worlds of comedy and Doctor Who meeting up. But not just that, this episode is part of an unofficial 2-parter known as the Adam Trilogy, which is only 2 parts, but trilogy sounds more dramatic.
Yeah, maybe there should be an extra episode like the Adric one.
Yeah.
And CGI one.
Just
some
check it all
some
out.
plasticine.
We could do it. We could make that happen.
Yeah.
Let's get it commissioned. It's part 2 of Adam's very short journey as part of Team TARDIS. So without further ado, I think we should launch in and dive right in, Paul. What say you?
Cool. I'm up for that.
Oh, brilliant. Because if you weren't, then this would have been really awkward.
Yeah, it would have kind of ended now, and that wouldn't have been fun.
Then again, it would have been a twist. Worthy of Shyamalan. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, get your DVDs lined up at 0000000, or have your Netflix or your iTunes copy past the BBC logo. Get out your VHS copies taped from back in the day, and wield them as you would, pressing play in 3, 2, 1, and we're off. It's time for The Long Game by Jing.
It's weird actually, because you mentioned now like recording VHS, and I just remembered Series 1 I recorded on a DVD recorder that I bought specifically to take Doctor Who on.
Oh, good man.
And it was kind of for free. We didn't have widescreen. It had those tiny little bars at the top to let you know that you were missing some picture.
Yeah.
That's what I remember just then. I forgot about that.
Oh, wow. Rose is dressing all futuristic all of a sudden.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good outfit.
Methinks she's trying to impress Bruno Langley. Out he comes.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it'd take much to impress him on this episode.
I do love a bit of Bruno Langley, and I do love his performance in these, but he's almost more northern than Eccleston.
Yes.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And what's kind of weird here is he's almost chuffed that she's showing off.
Yeah, I kind of like that. It's sort of showing that he's sort of developing her, I guess.
He's proud of his time-travelling chum, but then he gets a wee bit jealous as we go on as well.
And I like that this sort of shadowed the end of the world a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's sort of it's like an adherent of the repeated meme, Geek Points. End of the World gets this view of Earth. Long Game gets this view of Earth, and then we get another one in Bad Wolf.
Of course.
Yeah. The 3 episodes that feature Space Station. So, it's all just a nice kind of tie-in, isn't it? It makes this whole series feel like like it's one story. I've got the subtitles on, and he put, "He's your boy." It said, "He's your boyfriend," and then in brackets, an exclamation point. I'm not quite sure what that means.
No.
Is it some kind of space age emoji?
It could be.
I don't understand.
These titles look so old now.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, watching, because you got used to, swanky, shiny Blu-ray version, HD, new Doctor Who, that now the gap between McCoy and Eccleston doesn't feel like it, that much visually or time-wise. Yeah. It's weird how time is merging them together.
Almost like it was predetermined.
Well, this was meant to be a McCoy one, wasn't it? Or something like that. Didn't he write it as planned as a McCoy story or something?
It's certainly got... It definitely has a feel of something that could have existed in that run. And has kind of found itself here.
Yeah.
Hello.
I seem to recall it was something like he had an idea, Russell T Davies had an idea for this when he was he was like an early writer, like before, when Doctor Who was still running in the 80s. And he sort of never developed it or something like that. I might be wrong. That's just one of those random facts that I seem to have picked up with no basis of reality.
I've just realised as well, Kronkberger rings a bell. I'm sure that's from something.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But my brain won't allow it.
I think it's a comic reference or something like that. Something obscure from Doctor Who magazine.
2 credits 20, sweetheart.
I love him.
That was very hoity-toities. Like, it was that kind of tone. It was just 2 credits, sweetheart.
You relish that part. And that wasn't meant to be a pun.
Very good. Very good.
But it genuinely was. I'm starting the comedy early. I've peaked at relish.
Sorry. Oh, tell you what, I've got a history of Kronkbergers in Doctor Who.
Amazing. I love the internet exists for this.
In the comic, the Iron Legion, they're sold to Roman soldiers. Prose, we've got Judgment of the Jadoon, Resurrection Casket, and The Last Dodo all feature Kronkbergers. They appear in this episode, and in the 9th Doctor audio, Night of the Whisper. So get yourself a Kronkberger today, yo.
I wonder what a Kronk is.
I don't know, but it's 2 credits, sweetheart.
Because Kronk's the guy in that Emperor's New Groove.
Please don't hit me.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Maybe they made a squirrel.
Yeah, maybe it's something that he made. I'm meshing 2 worlds together there that don't belong together. But it's a nice image.
Squickety squicken. Christine Adams here as Kathika, and Anna Maxwell Martin as Soki, wearing, quite possibly, the most unusual blouse I've ever seen.
This is just before she went huge, isn't it? Anna Maxwell Martin. She was massive for a time there.
She broke out. Not literally.
No.
Just broke out of somewhere. She was in Bleak House the same year, I think. It would have been later in the year, wouldn't it? Bleak House was around Christmas.
It was around that time, yeah. I love these graphics, they're so cool. Here he is.
Look at him there.
See, when this went out, I was probably one of the biggest Simon Pegg fans on the planet. And I still love his work now, but back then I was completely obsessed. And I had been since Asylum and Big Train and all that. So the idea of him being in Doctor Who was just the most exciting thing ever. And then the episode probably didn't live up to my expectations because I bigged it up so much.
Yeah.
He's got to be amazing.
It's the curse of mid-season where showrunners and writers never aim to make part of a series sag. Like, that's never the aim, but mid-series the stakes are always not as high, and things never quite sort of reach the heights of the opening and the close.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Like, looking at what featured in this one in the Next Time trailer, you think, oh, all right, okay. And I think what we get, spoiler alert, I think what we get, it's a pretty decent story. But this is, as we find out later, more beautifully subtle setup for the finale. It all plays into the game station in Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways.
Yeah.
And in this is where they're saving the day accidentally begins 100 years of media blackout and things going horribly wrong on Earth.
And it's really clever, I think, of Russell doing that, of making the seemingly trivial, pointless episode into the crux of the whole season.
Yeah.
It's really well done.
everyone's like, oh, do you remember that one with the big meat thing in the ceiling? That was good, wasn't it? And then later on they're like, oh, do you remember that one with the meat thing in the ceiling? Yeah, it was really bloody important. I didn't realise. But it also means that even though this is part 2 of the 2-part Adam trilogy, it's also part 1 of the Bad Wolf trilogy.
Oh,
because you can watch this and then watch the 2-parter at the end in a row, and they all make sense.
Very true.
I've just realised that the dude next to him there looks a little bit like Renfield from the show Young Dracula. It probably isn't, but it distracted me for a moment. I can only apologise.
See, this is the blankest set ever.
Yeah, just a wee bit. Can we have a blank room? Cool. How blank do you want it? Really blank, like, blank, but not blank. Like, still make it look like it could be in an office. we want reasonably blank. So bland blank. Yeah, I'll do blanked.
See, I just
official
remembered
colour.
I remember watching the repeat of The Mind Robber on TV. The first episode went out in a massive thunderstorm near me, and so the transmission kept getting interrupted and like jerked around, and it freaked me out because it felt like, because that's the one when the TARDIS is breaking down and all that, and it's my telly's going at the same time, and the blank room just reminded me that when I watched that on DVD, although the restoration's beautiful, you could now see the lines on the floor of the blank room, and it kind of spoiled the effect of nothingness. The kind of shonky film on TV signal just didn't quite convey.
To be fair, imagine if your TV started playing up during this sequence as well. It's like, oh God, she's leaking into this woman's brain,
isn't it?
It's pretty creepy. This, pretty darn creepy.
It's a great Russell idea, though. I think.
Oh, it's a cracking idea, and this is something that Russell's brilliant at doing. Because again, also quite unusual. Mid-season, it's a Russell T Davies episode. Which I think is only this series where he writes the majority of them, and next year is when it's spread out a little bit more, and he sort of just sets up the structural stuff.
Yeah.
But it's very Russell to introduce this one kind of gross, but at the same time fascinating concept. Things like the adipose later on, like they're adorable little balls of human skin and fat and bone. Like there's something horrible about it, but you can't help but look.
Yeah.
And I can't help but stare into this woman's open brain hole.
Have you talked to anybody about this?
I've got a problem, Paul. Gazing into her brain hole.
Just got to keep looking in the hole. Not that. Sorry.
I know, you filthy man.
I didn't mean to make that sound rude. It's just a natural effect I have.
Well, this is now certificate PG.
Now, I heard a random bit of trivia the other week that I didn't know before, but I was trying to do a bit of research so I knew what I was talking about, because I haven't seen this one in so long. And apparently, on that screen in Simon Pegg's room, there's little shots from old episodes.
Yeah,
like, hidden amongst it. But I've never been able to spot them. I
from the classic series.
Yeah, I sat there and paused it and was trying to look at it and go, no, can't see them. So I think the internet might be lying. But if someone can prove otherwise...
It was fibbing to you, Pearl. It
knew. It'd be a nice thought, because if it was true, this would be the first use of classic stuff.
That's very true, actually, yeah. Because they make a big deal like the first time we ever really see classic stuff, like visually, is in The Next Doctor.
Yeah.
Like donkey's years from now, which is a weird thought in itself.
And that feels so long ago now. We're getting old.
We're close to death. The blessed release is creeping in. Oh, random bit of trivia for you. The frozen corpseman, who I thought was Renfield from Young Dracula, the actor Simon Ludders, who's a lovely man, it was not him, but he appears in New Earth as a patient in Series 2.
Oh!
Which I didn't know, so now we know, and knowing is indeed half the battle. He was also Trevor Smith in Broadchurch, but that's by the by. The curse of looking up actors' CVs, you can get lost in a rabbit hole of nonsense.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, Rose. How I inappropriately fancy you at this point in time.
I think Rose was absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm definitely more of a fan of Series 1 Rose than Series 2 Rose. Not that there's anything wrong with Series 2 Rose. I just love the kind of innocence and the sort of punky edge to her here.
Yeah, the teenager in space in this series.
Yeah.
Like, next series, it's the plucky pair travelling in time and space and having a laugh and going on dates. Whereas this year, it's Rose finding a footing and getting used to it. Yeah, and I like her exploratory side, which out of context could sound
that could sound
incriminating.
bad.
Now here's Adam being devious. Already he's plotting away. So where do you stand on Adam's tale? Because apparently Russell created it on purpose to just basically say this life isn't cut out for everybody and everybody isn't cut out for this life, and we're going to prove it to you with this story.
I sort of think it's a good idea, but I think it's very rushed through. I don't think that Bruno really got the material to give it justice.
Maybe another episode would have sort of given him the time to, like, we can see him taking advantage of the scenario a bit more.
Yeah, I think in this I think they want to kind of portray him as this, wicked, he's no good, but he just makes a series of incredibly stupid mistakes, and it's more naivety, I think, than outright wickedness that causes it. I think it's a bit of a strange one.
Speaking of wickedness and strange ones, what a really wonderful visual! Like opening up after all those sort of red, like heating lit floors, into a snowy. Like, I mean, they haven't even shown the ceiling yet. I mean, I think they will in a moment, but it almost could have been outside. Could have been outdoors. It's really bizarre. In fact, even now, like, because the light's coming out from the top, like it could almost be open.
Yeah. It's a very strange system, really. I mean, the one thing that I kind of realised when I rewatched this is that nobody ever moves floors, and yet the lifts are all in perfect working order.
Yeah.
And I always thought, surely they'd be a bit shonky. But, maybe they keep them clean for that point where they go up to this floor.
I love how everyone down below is sort of, without realising it, inhaling and being covered in humid Jagrafest sweat.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what it is, isn't it? Like, all the excess heat of its body is being pumped downwards into the other 499 floors. Oh, dear. Oh, corpses!
Yeah,
we're in the Haunted Mansion!
These are fun. That was a nice little jolt, I think.
Especially that first one. Like,
the
they're
first
still flesh-covered.
This set, I'm still not a fan of that set. It's just the exact same room with a bit of dangly stuff.
Hey, nothing wrong with a bit of dangly stuff.
It's very traditional Doctor Who in that moment, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Actually, that's a very good point. This is the first story, I think, in this series that, I mean, aside from it, like being an idea from yesteryear, and I can say yesteryear with you because you'll understand it.
Yes.
Whereas 30% of our listeners will probably be very confused. Whereas it feels like a story from yesteryear. It does fit in. It's sort of very. It's clearly kind of a low budget ep, apart from a certain effect. It's set within the same rooms. It's the same floor redressed to repurposed. It's and again very dialogue heavy. It's based on character and suspense. So it does harken back to that period. That being said, I could. Yeah, exactly. After Dalek, high body count and sort of high octane action, it does kind of give you a chance to go.
Also, I find this is really interesting because at the time, I thought that a video where you identify what you're into and your hobbies and why you want the job was a really unusual and rather bizarre plot device, and more that's becoming the way you apply for jobs in the creative industries.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, so now this is scarily, I had to do one of these a couple of days ago, so I know exactly how she feels now.
they predicted the far future and instead just predicted the recent future.
Just the last 10 years.
Nice bit of music as well. Like, Murray Gold's done some cracking work on this one. The way it sort of sank down when he first went liar. It's like, do suspense. S is going to hit the F. So I said F because fan is the word.
Yes.
Didn't really need censoring, did it?
Maybe if you censor random words, it makes the swearing harder to pinpoint. It could work.
Now, you get to cover a lot of comedians, like, sort of leaping genres and jumping into dramas and horrors and trying other stuff.
Yes.
Why do you? And this is more. This is. I'm reaching into journalist Paul.
Okay.
Tapping into his energies, which sounds filthy.
It's a very rude. This is a very rude podcast tonight.
Yeah, well, you know, it is after 10, where we are. I don't know what it's like for everyone else. How do you feel about comedic actors sort of taking on more serious, or in this case, kind of like moo-ha-ha scary roles? Did you feel... Because me personally, I feel it sort of makes them slightly more threatening to see someone who we're used to making us laugh do something kind of scary.
Well, I think I think when you're a comic actor, anyway, you tend to be creating characters that are just as complex as dramatic actors a lot of the time, especially when you're putting them on a live stage. I mean, a good example of that, there's a brilliant comedian called Colin Holt, who kind of does that many different characters, and he can create, you believe you're watching a completely different person when he just puts a headband on or something. And then he went into Being Human in the last series, so he played a vampire in that, and he was amazing at it. And you wouldn't sort of think it. I suppose a lot of people would go, "Oh, he's a comedy actor. He's not that good," but he was brilliant, and they always tend to be, I think. And and then you sometimes get people being quite snobbish about it, but an actor's an actor, really, and it's still the same skill.
That being said, Peg does terrify me.
Well, see, again, I was really, really excited for it, and I think what we got was a variation on Peg. And it's a shame. I think I do genuinely admire the man. He's fantastic, but I don't think that... I think he chewed the scenery a little bit here, which I suppose is all he could do. But
it's quite possible as well. It's one of those where when approaching it, you think, "Oh wow, okay, so I get to be kind of a bit evil, and you know, I get to sort of revel in being a nasty piece of work somewhat." But then it gets peeled away that I am not in charge of this whatsoever, and it's a big ball of meat with a tiny mouth is actually in charge.
He plays that bit of it really well towards the end, I think, when he's kind of admitting who he is. He's pitch perfect as that kind of slimy guy. But at the beginning, I didn't really believe he was evil or anything.
Eccleston's boots could do with a good old clean. I know this is the first thing I've mentioned about good old Chris in this particular episode, but I just couldn't help be distracted by the chewing gum clinging to the bottom of his soles.
I love Chris Eccleston. I mean, he's just the most pure man on the planet, I think. He only does what he truly believes in, and he's amazing.
I adore the fella. Have you ever had the chance to meet him?
No, I saw him once. I mean, he's a big fan of a band I love called I Am Glute, and he goes to their shows, and he's been in their music videos.
I was going to say he's been in a couple of the music videos, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I remember I went to one once, and it kind of got word that he was in the building, and I turned around and just saw his ears running away. No, but then I got this is incredibly good nerd points. I got to see him in a play at the Donmar Warehouse with Gillian Anderson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a Doll's House, the Ibsen play, and it was amazing. And the Donmar's really small as well, and they have to walk off through the audience. So he kind of had to storm past us several times. It was amazing. But I didn't hang around. I couldn't hang around and be all fannish at him, because I wouldn't know what to say. I would have just gone, you're awesome. And I'm usually really good at reining that in, but there are certain people that I just if I can't think of something to say, I'm just not going to approach them because it's not worth their time.
I couldn't avoid talking to him the first time I met him because I had to give him a tour of my college.
That's quite weird.
It's very weird. I went to Pendleton College in Salford and studied performing arts, and they opened a second theatre on site that they called the Eccleston. It was named after him. So we knew there was going to be, like an opening of some kind. Like, we've been using it for rehearsals, and one of the shows was being blocked in there to perform in there about a month later. But we didn't realise he was going to be there on like the official kind of opening-y day, and I had to show him around.
I suppose you've got something to talk about in that instance.
But it was
more.
It was more. Yeah, it was more sort of like, oh, this is, we did stuff through here, and he was like, oh right, and so what are you doing at the moment? What class have I stolen you from? And I was like, oh, physical theatre. We're doing. Looking a bit of this and this. I was like, oh, la, la, la. And thank you very much. I've just been handed a brew live.
Couldn't get you a Kronberger, sorry.
I couldn't get me a Kronberger. Guy Lambert, ladies and gentlemen. See him later in the series. But yeah, I slipped in a very quick. By the way, I think what you did with the character of the Doctor and Doctor was brilliant, and it was my favourite version. Thank you for that. He was like, oh, well, thanks very much. It's very kind of you. And then left it at that. I was like, I'm not mentioning it again. Yeah. Because coincidentally, on the same day, my partner had bought me a late birthday present. And that birthday present was the first Ninth Doctor action figure in a single-carded packaging. So if for some reason I'd had to have got in my bag, say like if he was like, I don't mean to be rude, but have you got like a paracetamol or whatever, just any reason, like, oh, I don't have a pen on me, do you have a pen? Any reason that would have made me go into my bag could have turned into the most awkward situation in the history of awkward situations.
Oh, amazing.
So, but he's a very warm man, and like you say, he's very pure. He picks good stuff and stuff he wants to get his teeth into, because ultimately he wants to tell a story and he wants to engross people.
Yeah.
And that's we've talked about it before on this, but like I wonder where you stand on it. I'm as sad as it was for him to go. I'm quite happy that he did the one series because, in hindsight, we've got one excellent series that is its own beast.
Yes.
And kind of exists on its own.
Yeah, I mean, I would have happily, if he wanted to come back, if he said tomorrow, I'll do 4 episodes for you as a guest or something, and I'll run around with Beast Cloudy, I'd jump up and down with joy because we'd get that a little bit more of him. But at the same time, I do totally agree. I think it's such a perfect series. Even the kind of wobbly bits, like the Slovene not quite working in CGI and all that, and all the kind of bits that you kind of would fix if you had more time, I sort of forgive them with this first series more than I do in later ones, where you kind of, my mind will tell me, hang on, you should know better by now. It's fine in series 1, I don't know why. But I have this theory actually on that, where whenever I try and watch a new episode of Doctor Who, I have to try and be that 4 or 5-year-old who was watching Sylvester McCoy again.
Yeah.
And I have to switch off, so the phones go in other rooms, and, I try and watch it live as much as I can. It's not been that possible in the last couple of years, but I always try and watch it as it goes out. And I don't like any distractions. I hate it if I'm in a room with someone who goes, wasn't he in EastEnders? Or something like that, because it pulls me out of the moment. And after I've watched it, I'll rip it to shreds if I don't like it, or I'll praise it from, the highest mountain if I love it. But for that 45 minutes, I have to be that child again. And the ones that pull me out in the middle of the story and make me go, hang on, that doesn't make sense, are the ones that I don't like. And it's weird how that always happens.
Escapism's meant to make you escape, and if it doesn't do that, then it ain't doing its job by jing.
That's true, this is the only thing that does it. And I always wonder if it's something linked with them taking it off me. At the peak of my interest. As a child, they just suddenly, it was like, no more Doctor Who. And I don't know, it's weird.
I've just remembered another weird connection with Eccleston related to this episode. In 2010, it was 2011 I think we saw it, myself and Guy, whom you heard bring me a cup of tea not 5 minutes ago, went to see a piece of theatre called In the Beginning at Westminster Abbey. And a lot of actors were basically performing like the first books of the Bible, of the Old Testament,
Yeah.
in a way that was more about storytelling. And it was sort of just an experiment. I think it was one night only, and a big series of actors took part. And we were we guided around by Miranda Raisin, which was really weird. Like Doctor Who connection, Tallulah in the Daleks in Manhattan story. Probably better known for Spooks, wasn't she? So probably better
Not
known
to
for
us.
that one.
Not to us. Let's be fair. That's how it works. You can be in an episode for 2 minutes, and you're always going to be that character.
Well, yeah. Well, Ralph Little was one of the other people, one of the other actors who was sort of like a guide in the experience for another group. And to me now, thanks to Doctor Who, I mean, despite his other work, but thanks to Doctor Who, he's Guy Fawkes in the Gunpowder Plot game.
That makes sense.
But also, Tamsin Greig read... Is it Greig or Greg? I always say Tamsin Greig.
I think it's Greek, yeah.
Apologies, Tamsin, if you're listening, which you're not, but you might, but you aren't. But either way, Tamsin Great read... doesn't make any sense. She has no connection to Frosties whatsoever. Maybe it's a favourite cereal. She read Genesis, and then at the end, because we didn't know which actors were going to be participating, as far as I can recall, and then at the end, Eccleston was the last actor.
Amazing.
It was like, what the bloody hell? So, technically, I counted it as Long Game 2.
That makes sense. This is another one. I've got more geek points for you here. I went to
hit
see...
me.
Yeah, I went
Hit
to see
me with
her.
your geek
I went
point
to see
stick.
Tamsin Greig in God of Carnage at Gielgud, and it was with Ken Stott from Rebus, or the Hobbit trilogy, but also Ralph Fiennes, Lord Voldemort himself.
No, please, come on. Rafe Fiennes.
Oh,
say
Rafe.
it how it's
Say
it how it's spelt. Say it how
Ralph.
it's spelt. R-A-L-P-H. Spelt Rafe.
And weirdly enough, just to be even spookier, he once, graced the stage of the theatre I've been working at recently. He was, he used to appear in shows there. It was like, oh, this is creepy. It's a small
Back when he
world.
was Ralph.
Yes.
Back in his Ralph days.
Yeah, so that was another good one.
Now I'm King Rafe. I just think of the Peter Serafinowicz sketch which played like Leonard Rossiter. But that's because my mind's broken. Maybe I need a hatch in my brain.
Possibly. I feel like sometimes there's that much random trivia that I've accumulated either through Doctor Who, because that's what all Doctor Who fans seem to do, is accumulate trivia about the show, or through comedy because I need to know who was in that show with that person 15 years ago to do my work. That I just sort of, that's all that's in there. And I sort of feel like if I could have a hard drive in there and I could just click my fingers, maybe I'd have space to store important things like where my phone is when I need it and stuff.
So essentially what you're saying is that we should start up a Patreon page to get us info spikes.
Yeah, I think we need to contact a consortium of banks and get this to happen.
Let's make it happen. Now this is beautifully creepy because they've basically just revealed, they're all corpses. We're in a room full of dead people.
And that's another one of those weird moments, isn't it, where Russell's taken something incredibly bleak and it's just sort of in the background, making you feel slightly uneasy.
Because normally at this point you're like, oh, they're just the baddies, they work for the baddie. Or it's like, no, they're corpses, they're on remote control, they're only doing this because they're puppets. Oh, here we go. Coming up, one of the greatest vocal warm-ups of all time. I can, and I once got it wrong on live television, and I'll never live it down. So to rectify that, let me be the first to say, the mighty Jagrafess of the Holy Hadrajasic Maxarodenfo.
Way!
Hey!
It's all the party piece, really, isn't it, once you learn how to say it.
And here he is. Here he is, the party piece himself. Oh, it's a little bit phallic.
I've never noticed these eyes before.
Yeah, he's got these beady little peepers that are sunken in amongst all the flab.
Yeah, that's the first time I've actually noticed them. I've clearly not been paying attention for 10 years.
You've probably been more distracted by the sweat and the gnashing and everything.
I think it's one of those things where this is one of those episodes where in my head, when I don't watch it, I find it's a bit rubbish, and it always ends up low down in the polls and what have you. But do you know what? When you watch it, it's lots of fun. It's a really enjoyable episode. Maybe I should do it with all the ones I hate.
Maybe they all just need Jagrafesses.
Possibly.
I've noticed in this episode, we've just seen in the foreground in the previous shot a girl who was in the info spike scene earlier on.
Yeah.
I've noticed that the future hairstyle in this for the extras and the supporting artists is slicked down grease heavy hair with random ponytails at different intervals. So, if they've already predicted the video audition, the video job application, maybe this is right around the corner.
Maybe. You never know.
And can we also get a brownie point for Wonder Woman-esque unnecessary bondage?
It's a very strange setup.
It is, isn't it?
Where did he pull that from? Because he's not... where did he suddenly get the ability to chain them up from? Does he just keep that in the cupboard for when he has the occasional...
Bring out the Kinkinator!
Because he didn't need that for Susie before.
Well, who
He
knows?
just went, just stand here and shoot at something instead of running away. It's fine. But no, they get a full-on setup. It's intriguing.
Now, we find out later on, spoiler alert, that the Jagrafess is here because he has bosses.
Mm.
And those bosses turn out to be the Daleks.
I'd love to have been in that business meeting. Where's
the red button TARDIS of a bunch of Daleks having to wheel the Jagrafess into Satellite 5?
Do you think it started off really small?
Maybe, yeah, like a hatchling.
Maybe it was an ordinary sized person and it's sort of creosoted.
See, that's how they can defeat it. Wafer thin mint.
Yeah.
That's all they need.
That's sort of what they do, really, isn't it? But with
Pretty much, yeah. With a wafer thin heating system. It's not as quotable, but it works. I've just realised, thanks to how blue his face is, his teeth look even more of a yellow tint.
Yeah.
It's proper creepy. I picked up the... as you'll see in the thumbnail, ladies and gentlemen, I picked up the editor action figure on eBay the other week for this to take a little 40 of, because I didn't have him. And what strikes me when I look at this figure, I've got it in my hands right now, boys and girls. Listen to the joints. Ooh, they move. Ooh, it's the hippest, happiest joint in town. He's not icy at all. It's almost the editor before he stepped into the office that day. So it's just struck me.
Slimy.
It's full on slimy.
I mean, look, mine looks shiny.
Ooh,
Overly shiny.
Mine's kind of dry. Which makes me wonder if I painted his hair and beard a soft ginger colour and put him on a different body, would I have a Shaun of the Dead action figure?
That's a good thought. Or maybe you should, because there are Shaun action figures. You could put sunglasses on him and make him into Nicholas Angel.
That is true.
Because that outfit would become a cop outfit quite easily.
Well, with the facial hair, I think I'd probably better put a coat on him and make him into Gary King, maybe. So
That works.
The Gary King route.
Yeah.
And confuse any young relatives that come to the house and see the Doctor Who toys. Who's that one? Why is he drinking?
That's a YouTube mashup waiting to happen.
Oh, poor Bruno.
Yeah. Poor Bruno.
Yeah, those chairs aren't good for your posture. They make you scream your heads up. Oh. Evil gloating time.
I'd love to know how he gets the ability to make the key float.
Powers. That's a very good point, actually, because we never see it. We never visually see it hovering or anything. We just see the chain.
Yeah. It's really weird. I had this image of somebody coming in with like a fishing hook from afar.
Well, like that bit in Guest House Paradiso, to link it back to Simon Pegg. I just got somebody with a little fishing rod through the ceiling, hooking it and carrying it up.
Oh,
albeit a slightly more sanitary version of that gag. Which did make me gag when I first saw it.
Fantastic.
Maybe that's who Simon Pegg's editor actually is. It's the dad from the family in Guest House Paradiso.
Yeah, he's just
he's been
angry
driven
at the world.
insane. So it's a
This is
prequel to
clever.
Bad Wolf, a sequel to Dalek, and a spin-off of Guest House Paradiso. We're on to a winner here. Forget the Avengers. This is the first interconnected universe.
See, this is really clever. How he sort of... I think this is one of the first times where you sort of see him getting somebody else to do the work for him.
Yeah, well, yeah, setting it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the thing to keep count of this series, boys and girls, is how many times the Doctor saves the day or leaves it up to someone else. And this is, I think, the first blurred line. Like, it's he gives Kathika the push, where he lets her know what to do. Although I don't think he anticipates how far it goes.
No.
But, by Jove.
He's got such an infectious grin.
So chuffed. He's a very good eye actor, Eccleston. I mean, he's a very good actor in general, but his eyes, like, even in scenes where he's not saying anything, you can read so much from him.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that goes back to the I Include video he did, Proof, where it's basically a 3-minute shot of his face, and he manages to convey all the emotion of an incredibly emotional song with just his eyes and his mouth. And it's just wonderful. It's kind of, if I wouldn't even bother doing an acting reel if I was Christopher Eccleston. I'd just play them that and go, right, hide it. Because I would on that.
So what makes you think you'd be... well, that could be his video interview. That could be his video application to any job. I've got 3 months off. I just fancied working in Greg's for a bit. You know, just to do something a bit different. All right, well, what qualifies you to work with food and in a customer-heavy environment? Take a look at this music video.
It's a wonderful thought. I'd love to get a sausage roll off Christopher Eccleston. Dear diary, today I got a sausage and cheese melt from the Doctor.
I even stretched a chicken bake because he's worth it.
I love the anger in that Jack Professor's eyes now that I've seen them.
His beady little peepers. Oh, that's gross. Oh, first bit of gore.
Well, we had Cassandra exploding. That was a bit grisly.
Oh, this is like the polar opposite. I mean, look at that chunk of meat on the floor behind him. Oh, that's it's thumping.
Yeah.
That's creepy, man. I'd never spotted that before. I didn't realise it was thumping.
Really well done. For what's clearly a budget of 27p, gratuitous boob shot, just putting it out there.
What are you talking about? His tie's in the way. There's a gratuitous boob shot. Oh my god. Oh, and Catholic, yeah, you've saved the deer. Does this series hold the award of being the only series to feature several stories with some people having an opening in their heads?
I think so.
Because we get, which is a weird category to be in. But we get this one and we get the 3 Slitheen episodes. Right, I'm not sure if does blowing up Cassandra's head count as that? This is a great shot. He's doomed. Yeah. He's absolutely screwed. Oh, Adam, do you know what you've done?
Clearly not. He's. See, I've seen a lot of people complain about this scene because it's very dangerous for the Doctor to kind of leave him behind with technology in his head. And
ask me again after the credits, and I have something to tell you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes. This does not go unpunished. Which sounds all ominous now. It sounds like I've got an announcement to make, but it's actually spoiler heavy, so I'll save it till after the thep. But I know what you mean. It's pretty serious. Look at his little brain there. Oh. That's not an insult to Bruno Langley. I'm saying look at his little brain peeking through. Imagine if you accidentally clicked before you went to sleep.
Yeah.
And then a spider crawled into it. Instead of eating a spider just crawls into your head. Statistics.
You'd never be able to listen to Under Pressure.
Yeah, that's very true.
Or the start of Killer Queen, your head would close open.
If he sat in the front row of West Side Story at any point, he's going to have the worst evening.
That's a wonderful image.
Oh no! I suppose the solution is you could grow a very long fringe.
Yeah. Oh, that look says it all. Brilliant.
Rose is kind of lapping this up a little bit, isn't she?
Ooh. Well, it's also like this is a shadow of Captain Jack coming in as well in a weird way, because he's clearly the one who can do it right, but he starts off the opposite way round, where they don't trust him. And then he has to kind of prove himself. Oh, great face.
Dum-de-dum, diddly-dum. Speaking of the beautiful Captain Jack, he's not in next week's. But next week, we go into a pretty deep storyline, possibly the heaviest emotional thud of the new era so far. Maybe in the entire run, actually.
It's a beautiful
of the
story.
show. Yeah, and also one of the few times where we contradict, we cross through time and ruin things. By Jove, Rose! And also, here's one to note, which I'll talk about a bit more next week, but the Reapers are one of the few villains to win.
Yeah.
They actually win by the end of the story. It's just a sort of a little loophole that saves the day thanks to Pete's bravery. But the Reapers eat the Doctor and have essentially defeated everybody, and they're going to keep going. But yes. But I'll tell you what didn't keep going, the Jagrafess. It burst like a big bloody balloon.
Also, I've just remembered, shout out to Adam's mum, Judy Holt, who I saw in a play last year, and she was brilliant. And I was sat there going, why do I know her face? And it was from that. So from, 9 years apart, I saw her click her son's brain open. And then she was on stage in front of me, and it was all impressive.
Was she walking around just clicking?
I wish she did. But fair play to her, Good actress. Not giving her a chance to shine there, but very good.
Hey, she gets the best reaction shot of the story. But again, like you say, the important thing is, boys and girls at home, with the episodes like this that you sort of skip through if you're picking episodes to watch and stuff, give them another go from time to time, because there is a lot to love inside them. There is a lot of stuff. I mean, there's also things to spot that you never will on the first go. I had no idea that the Jagrafess's flesh dropped off that much and then kept pulsating. I'd never noticed that before. That's gross. It's absolutely hideous. Now, if you're watching Father's Day, turn your DVD off, you nutters, and gather round. Not you, Fire. Well, only episode I can get away with that. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Very clever.
I could have gone for Extreme Sports Calendar, but Adam returns in the IDW 50th anniversary comic book series. Let's try saying that when you're drunk. Prisoners of Time. I think it's called Prisoners of Time, Prisoners in Time. Look at my shelf. No, it's Prisoners of Time. Adam returns. He turns out to be the villain of that story. Much older, much wiser, and imbued with more alien tech and knowledge because of what he's been stealing from government facilities over the years using the info spike. And he affects every incarnation of the Doctor by taking his friends away and bringing grief and loss throughout all of his lives. Until he gets to the 9th Doctor, where he just kidnaps him and Rose. He's just like, no, you two are going to watch me tear the rest of your life apart. But then the 10th Doctor sort of has vague memories of it happening, and so does the 11th, and they kind of begin the undoing of Adam's plan. It's a really, really cool little series, and I remember reading it. I mean, I did say spoiler alert, so if you didn't want to know about it, Yabu sucks! But when I first read it, and I got to I think it's issue 8, where you kind of get a massive clue, and the 8th Doctor story, that it might be Adam. You get like a bit of a visual clue. You go, hang on. No. No! And then in issue 9 it all comes together. So it does get answered, but I know what you mean on TX and watching it now, it is it's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
It's like, Rose, we can't meddle with time. Now let's dump this man with an electric brain hole back in the 21st century. and hope for the best.
I think that's the beauty of the spin-offs, because these things are made under incredibly pressured timescales, and they don't have the time sometimes to rewrite everything to answer every possible question that someone's going to come up with. And the beauty of spin-offs and comics and Big Finish and all that is they're now going, oh, well, you know that thing that doesn't make any sense? Booyah. And just fixing it. I mean, it's great. Because then if somebody does go,
in.
yeah, why did that make any sense? You go, yeah, well, you haven't read it properly. You can sort of, how many parts of that are there?
Of the comic, I think I believe it's either 11 or 12 issues.
So if it's 12, then that's 14-part trilogy.
Yes.
Which is a great way to word it.
Oh,
because Adam's eat your heart out.
Really play it well. If anything, keeping the spirit alive.
Yeah.
Now let's delve into the Velvet Onion alumni for a second.
Okay.
Who, off the top of your noggin, good sir, who of the Velvet Onion Illuminati, as I'm going to dub them now for no reason, have appeared in Doctor Who and are about to appear in Doctor Who?
Okay, so not as many as you'd think, given the illustrious nature of them. The biggest kind of name for you is Ben Wheatley,
yes,
director,
of course.
who all of his work to date pretty much has had some links back to the Velvet Onion, so we sort of adopted him. It's sort of weird to explain it. The Velvet Onion is sort of, I focused on an era of comedy that a group of people who were always collaborating, who weren't really being written about to the same extent that people write about Python or the Goodies, or kind of going all the way back and things like Comic Strip. No one was really writing about this current group, and so you had the people making the Mighty Boosh and the people making Dark Marini's Dark Place, and they all sort of came out of the same comedy world. So that then spawns off, and you get different people, and there's different branches of the tree. And when they appear in enough things together, we go, oh, we'll have you. And so we sort of bring them in. And it's great. They're really receptive of it. So Ben Wheatley is one who we brought in because of his films, because Sightseers, which was his sort of big one, where we kind of brought him in, was pretty much written and created by Steve Orr, Alice Lowe, and had a lot of other people in who we covered. And so did all his earlier films as well, but that was kind of the cincher. He then cast Tony Way in a brief role in Deep Breath.
Yes, yeah. He has very lovely eyes.
Yes!
or does very briefly.
Yeah, but that's his thing. He seems to kill Tony off in almost everything he casts him in. So it's just sort of a nice little throwback, because he kills him in everything, spoiler alert, but that's just what he does to him. And Tony's one of the nicest men on the planet, and he just seems to adore killing him. He also cast Michael Smiley.
Yes, who's in Into the Dalek, yeah.
Yeah, so he's one of ours. Another one we've adopted. Way back before then, Tracy Ann Oberman.
Of course, yeah. In Doomsday and Army of Ghosts, yeah.
Yeah, and she started off doing comedy with things like Big Train with Simon Pegg, and then sort of stopped. Yeah, she sort of went into serious acting for a long time, and now through Toast of London, she started doing a lot of work with people again. And so we've it's one who we started talking to, and it turned out she's absolutely adorable, incredibly talented woman, and just seems to have so much time and passion and love for everything. And she's just done a radio piece for the BBC with Paul Kay, who is another one of ours, and he is going to be in the new series.
Yes. So it's an ongoing web. It's an interconnected.
Yeah, they sort of pop in and out,
string.
And it's nice because these things happen every now and then with it. I mean, there's a film coming out later this year called with yeah, that's its real title. With
That's a brilliant title.
yeah, and Tony Way's in it, and Steve Oram and loads of others. It's Steve Oram's movie, and it's sort of Julian Barrett and Noel Fielding are in it and all that, and it's mostly silent, and all the dialogue is done with monkey noises. And I've not seen it yet. I'm waiting to see it. It's supposed to be, we're arranging something soon, but Toya Wilcox is in it, and I've been a Toya fan for as long as I can remember, and suddenly I'm writing about her on the website, and then I'm writing about Doctor Who or Game of Thrones, and so what started out as this is all the funny comedy that you can watch, because all these comedians have suddenly started branching into serious acting and going off into other worlds, it's just become huge. And yeah, you sort of get to write about things that you love, but you never dreamed that you'd be talking about. I actually knew about Tony Way's part and Paul Kaye's part before they were announced, and had to keep them incredibly quiet.
Oh, cheeky.
And that's one of the only two times in my whole career so far where I've known something about Doctor Who before the general public. And it's a really weird feeling, which I'm sure you've had many times.
I've experienced it a couple of times myself, yeah.
And it's a really weird feeling, because you kind of want to run up to every Doctor Who fan you know and go, "Oh my god, guess what?" And you know you can't, because you know you're being professional, and you respect the person who's told you, and you can't say anything. But yeah, it's a weird feeling when it happens, and it's great when it finally you can say it and you can tell the world, and you go, "Oh." And that happens with other things. I mean, you get told all kinds of stuff doing this kind of work that you have to keep silent. But then it doesn't feel the same as with Doctor Who, and I think it's because it's such a huge part of my life, really. I've just been doing work at a theatre, and one of the actors in it was a guy called James Quinn, who was in Flatline last year as the train driver.
Yes. Oh, but a very brief but memorable part.
Yeah, and I was I went to see it because it was on at another theatre first, and then it came to us, and I was talking to him to arrange, promotion stuff, and in my head I'm going, I know the name, I know the face, where is it? Where's it from? Ping, Flatline. And of all the things he's done, and he's had a very long, prestigious career. I mean, he started off with Andy Serkis 30 years ago in the theatre, and he's kind of, a really respected theatre actor, but I couldn't help but get excited that he was in Doctor Who.
See, there you go. It's the beauty of it, the fact that it's going on. And speaking about excited of being in it, let's get cheeky. Bit of a wish list. Any of the Velvet Onion fam who you would like to see in Doctor Who?
Alice Lowe, without a doubt.
I was going to say Alice Lowe as well, actually. Yes.
I'm shocked that she hasn't been cast. And she was in Sherlock, so she almost got there.
I see. Well, there's the connection. Maybe it's a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Stepping out of 221B and into the TARDIS.
Yeah, she's on their radar now. So I'm just waiting for the right moment, because I think she'd have to play a villain. Alice is, again, one of the thing with comedians is they're almost all uniformly wonderful, nice, amazing people. But she would be amazing as a villain. She would relish that, I'm sure. And
I'd want to get Rich Fulcher into prosthetics again. It's been a long time since he's had to wear a ridiculous amount of fur or tree bark, or and really have a go. To be fair, he'd probably improvise quite a bit and change the order of the day.
Yeah, Rich is strange. He's a wonderful, wonderful human being, but as soon as you put a camera on him, he is Bob Fossil. He is that man-child, and he plays with you. I do remember doing an interview with him, and he was waiting. You know, like how when you're doing an interview with someone, you're speaking to them, and you ask them a question, then they reply, and because you're cutting it on video and what have you, you sort of wait till they've stopped speaking and give it a moment so you can edit and stuff. And, it's just a trick of the trade. And what Rich does is he waits until you think he's done, and just as you're about to say the next question, he goes, "Oh, but also," and then throws something else in, and just to throw you out, and then he grins at you as if to go, "Haha." And you know, he's wonderful and he's been so lovely all these years and I adore the man, I really do. But it was the hardest thing to do. He will not stop that game.
It probably would go down in history if there was an episode featuring a character that just spat in Peter Capaldi's face.
See, I'd love
For
to
a
see
laugh.
Rich and Peter Capaldi just going up one more. Because Capaldi always strikes me, I think he's such a magnificent actor, but I think he's also quite a mischievous soul. That's
You do
the
get a
vibe
sense
I
he's
get.
got the twinkle in his eye. He's got the William Hartnell twinkle in his eye.
Yeah.
I remember thinking that when it was first announced. I thought, oh, of course. Of course they talked to him about playing the role. It makes sense.
Yeah.
There's that sort of stern, like, that elderly face, the sort of strict demeanour. Like, I feel safe around this person.
Mm.
But even so, there's just that little spark that makes you go, but we're definitely going to have a laugh, which is quite nice, really.
Yeah. When the day comes, and I hope it's a long time off, let's get Colin Holt for the next Doctor. Going back to the list of people, he'd be brilliant. He's so quirky. He'd play whatever character you wanted to play. He'd be wonderful at it, I'm sure.
Start the campaign now. Get the campaign going. Paul, thank you so much for playing a very long game with me. Do you see what I did there?
Love it.
I kind of ruined it by saying, do you see what I did there?
Yeah, it would have just passed over with nobody noticing it otherwise.
Yeah, they would have been driving home, or turning the laptop off, and then go, oh, that's why he said it. Oh, I see.
He might have sat there and waited, and then they'd have been lying there in bed and going, oh, long game. Man,
that's what he meant.
Oh, he's a clever man.
He's layered like an onion, a velvet onion.
Ooh, you're on fire.
Well, that's because I'm leaning against a melting VHS on a radiator, so bringing it back together. Paul, where can we find you on Twitter? What's your handle?
I am at Didymus Brush.
As in Sir Didymus.
Yes, without the sir.
Yeah, and Basil Brush.
Yes, without
and
the
no
basil.
no
No basil
amber
has been
brushes.
added to me. I don't need the spice.
And not today, it says. We can, of course, find you as well at thevelvetonion.com. Ladies and gents, please do bookmark that one. It's a consistently constant treat. It'll always bring you back to your favourite people and let you know what they're getting up to. And also, you can find Paul dressed as the Crack Fox in the second Mighty Boosh DVD. I'm sorry, we've got to talk about this very briefly before we go. So I'm recently rewatching All the Mighty Boosh, and I noticed I don't have the Future Sailors DVD. So I pop it on, and I saw the tour, I think, on its second appearance in Manchester at the MEN initially. I thought, oh, this would be a laugh to watch. This is fun. Wait a minute. That Crack Fox looks awfully familiar. Did you realise you were going to be on the DVD that night?
Yeah, it was sort of weird. I didn't... Because I started... Funnily enough, that costume pretty much gave me my career. That and buying a gorilla photo. Which in itself is bizarre. I bought... In a charity auction, I bought this picture that Dave Brown had done, Bola from the Mighty Boosh, of a gorilla that lives in London Zoo now. And I, paid a fortune for it, and I checked with him first online that it was genuine and it was really him. And so I got talking to him, and then I thought, all right, well, I'm going to have to go and meet him after the show. So I went to Brixton in this Crack Fox outfit, and then Noel kind of stuck his head out the window and went, that is the best costume I've ever seen. And then came out to speak to us, and we sort of met Julian and Mike and Rich and all that, and then we went to Manchester. And we were there again, and they just kept dragging us into the show and, involving us. It was all a bit weird. And then the director of the live show was Paul King, who's Justin Paddington.
Yes.
And he basically asked us if we would, because we'd been, granted front row centre seats for the 2 DVD filming nights. So he asked us if we'd, get up and make sure everybody danced at the end during the band set. And just outside on the first night of filming, I slipped on a patch of ice, thought I was just bruised and being weak. Went in with painkillers and alcohol. Went through the whole show. About halfway through, sort of went, oh, I can't move my arm. Ow.
Oh, God.
And there's a shot during Bob Fossil's Dance Academy where you can actually see the moment of pain hitting me. And they've kept that in. They didn't keep in the moment when Noel was the hitcher picked me up and hugged me because I think I winced with so much pain, it's unbelievable. I sat through the show, went to A&E that night, I broke my arm. So I'd lost the end of my elbow and broke a bone in my wrist. And I just sat there the whole night going, it's fine, they're filming, I can't give up. And went back the next night in a sling. And it was weird. It was one of the weirdest experiences, and this was before I really knew Noel and Co. And
I think after that they owe you a job.
Yeah. Well, Noel stopped the show in the Apollo. So there was a moment when Noel and Julian were kind of talking on stage, and he stopped the show and went, "Sorry, are you all right?" I'm thinking, there's 3,000 people. This isn't the time. But there you go. And yeah, it was a few weeks later that I got talking to Alice Lowe, who'd heard about me, and she was doing some short films to promote that she wanted promoting, and so I sort of spoke to her, and then the gestation began, and it took about a year, but I started to get to know more and more of them, and just thought, oh, this is a good thing to do, and it sort of took off and became this ridiculously insane life.
And it all began with a damaged fox.
Yes.
Well,
slightly wonky arm.
Long may it continue, sir. Long may it rain. And
thank you very much.
Thank you for keeping us in touch with these fantastic projects, these fantastic people. And thank you, most importantly, as far as I'm concerned, for wasting 2 hours of your time to talk to me this evening.
It's been an absolute pleasure, sir.
It has been a pleasure, sir. We should meet at the Apollo soon, but don't maybe not on an icy evening.
No ice. I don't do ice anymore.
TheVelvetOnion.com, guys, do check it out. And join us next week for necessarily. We're talking about Father's Day, Paul. We need to be emotional.
Father's Day. I'm sure you'll have lots of fun.
I'm gonna weep like.
That's what I'm doing. I'm preparing you.
You're softening the blow.
Yeah, you'll be giggling all the way through it now, going, Rick Astley, it'll be fine.
I think Jackie's hair might help as well. But that is for another time. Join us next week for more 9 is 10. Until then, good luck, my dears. Or something.